Welcome to Mental Health Momentum, a Silicon Slopes podcast. I'm Dr. David Morgan. I'm a licensed psychologist and the director of mental health awareness here at Silicon Slopes. And on this podcast, we talk about mental health issues in business and beyond, and we look for solutions. I'm going to introduce my guest to you today, Amelia Larson. Hello. Did I say that right, Amelia?
You nailed it.
Got it. Let me tell you about Amelia. She is a founder, operator, and trusted guide focused on one thing, helping people navigate complex, high-stakes decisions with clarity, dignity, and care. She is the CEO of A Life for Seniors, a senior living consultancy built to feel less like a call center and more like a thoughtful partner during moments that matter. Amelia's perspective is shaped by both lived experience and formal training. She earned her undergraduate degree in healthcare administration and a master's degree in gerontology from the University of Utah, grounding her work in a deep understanding of aging, care systems, and the realities families face when theories meet real life. Beyond her role as CEO, Amelia is deeply interested in how systems shape trust. Her work centers on simplifying complexity, designing better decision pathways, and building businesses that respect people rather than process them. She operates at the intersection of caring, giving, healthcare, and entrepreneurship, where emotion and execution are constantly in conversation. She also dabbles in startups and is currently building a health tech platform focused on making care decisions more transparent, humane, and navigable for families and providers alike. I want to ask you about that in a minute.
Okay.
In addition to her operating work, she serves on the board of the David Eccles School of Business, the National Placement and Referral Alliance, and the Business Owners Board of the Edison House. Outside of work, she's curious about how people make decisions under stress, how trust is earned, and why the conversations we often avoid matter most. Amelia lives in Salt Lake City, where she spends her free time biking, skiing, and traveling, often chasing new places, fresh perspectives, and the space to think clearly. Her work is guided by a simple conviction: the way we care for people at the end of life reveals what we value long before we get there. I love that. Well, thank you for coming to the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This will launch in probably April. It's early February of 2026. Are you doing much skiing?
I did go this weekend,
Okay.
and I
There
went
hasn't been much snow.
No, Deer Valley was actively bad. Alto
Okay.
was a little bit better. They got like 2 inches the other day, and it was a little bit
Jeez.
softer. But the whole time, I'm like, this might be my end. So you
Right.
never know.
Tell me about this tech platform that you're working on.
Yeah. So right now, we do everything manually with families.
Okay.
So we really do twofold. We talk to families, help them understand what they're going through, and then help them find a solution of what's next. And so I think there's a big part of it with the stigma of asking for help and
Yeah.
talking about things in general, which you know probably more than most.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to build a platform that just creates an ease of access so people don't have to fit into a category in order to get help, but can just have access to the tools that are out there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Just lowering that barrier to entry for
Mhm.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
And end of life is such a crazy time. I mean, it's something clearly we expect, right? Because it's going to happen to all of us, but it's such a time of high stress. And I think mental health can become a significant issue, both for sometimes the people that are coming to the end of their lives and the people who are dealing with that.
100%. I
Yeah.
think when we see it, like a lot of families just avoid this topic as a whole,
Yeah.
right? And I think a lot of families plan for different parts of their life, like weddings or retirement
Yeah,
or
yeah.
college. And everyone has this thought that, yeah, we're getting older, but no one wants to put a plan for when
Yeah.
that time comes. And I think it's a huge negative for people because not only is it hard for the person that is getting older, they don't know what's coming next. They don't have a say in the plan half the times because a crisis has happened and then
Right.
they're just forced into a decision. But then I think also the family member that's helping them navigate that is stuck in a lot of turmoil, especially
Yes.
now, right? It's the big sandwich generation where they have kids, but they're also the caregiver. And now you have, this person that's like the daughter and the employee and the spouse and the friend and all of these things. And on top of it, they're forced to make this big decision that they weren't planning on.
Yeah.
And it's just a lot for people to take on.
Yeah. I had a good friend who she was terrified of dying, and she would never go to the doctor because of that, because no news was good news in
Yep.
her mind, which turned out to be terrible news
Yeah, that's how it
in
goes.
the long run. But she would never want to talk about death or final arrangements or anything. And so she did pass, and it was very stressful for her family that remained, because then they had to do all these things, right?
Yeah.
I remember my parents years ago, they're still alive, but I'm the executor of their estate, and they've made all the arrangements already. And that's peace of mind to me,
100%.
because I have this book that that's on
Follow,
my shelf that
right?
I will go to when that time comes, and be able to deal with all that. But yeah, so I love that's what you're doing. How did you find your way into this? I mean, a master's degree in gerontology, that's not like,
Yeah, it's
you don't hear
random.
about that every day, right?
Exactly. My dad's dad was paralyzed 2 months before my dad was born. He was a
Oh,
truck driver. A drunk truck driver hit him, and so my dad grew up with that as his parent, and so we spent a lot of times just volunteering with him and in and out of the nursing homes, more so to just give back to people that are in unfortunate
yes.
situations. Fast forward, I was doing speech therapy for school, and then my grandma had a stroke, and then my uncle had cancer, so we kind of got to go through it all again.
You were doing, like, you were a speech therapist?
Yeah, that's what I was
Oh,
going
okay.
for
Okay.
school. And
Okay. Got
then,
it.
yeah, when the stroke happened, my grandma went to skilled nursing, and it was just a pretty negative experience for her. And then on top of it, the stress that my mom had, just because they were back to back incidents with the cancer and with the stroke. So she had the stress induced vertigo, and it just kind of created the spiral. But the biggest thing I saw is my grandma just had such a negative experience that I wanted to go make the difference. So I switched my whole degree, wanted to go run these buildings, started off running skilled nursings and kind of getting into that. And then found out I couldn't just really make the change that I wanted to. It's so regulated by Medicare and Medicaid
Mm-hmm.
that the personality couldn't really be changed. And so then I kind of switched into assisted living, ran those buildings for a while, did everything else in between, and then still got to the point when families came in, they were just in crisis mode, right? It was the fall happened, they went to the hospital. The hospital said, you have 3 days, you can't go home, you got to go somewhere, ready, set, go.
Right. Right.
And so I really wanted to educate families that when you came in, there's different things to look out for, right? The countertops are nice and the chandeliers are pretty, but they're not taking care of you.
Yeah.
So here are different things that you should look for and you should ask. And the feedback from a lot of families was, why are you telling us things that other buildings aren't? And my response was simply, I'm not selling you a car. I want you to be prepared in
Yeah.
making this decision and feel good about it. And I think at the end of the day, it's just communication, right? I think so many of the things we do comes down to communicating and asking those questions and, feeling okay to feel dumb during those moments, but gathering that information so you can take an active role in making the decision. And so I really wanted to make a difference. So I started this company almost 8 years ago to just kind of help families understand what's out there and kind of be the matchmaker to help them find that right community that helps them continue living life when they get in there instead of just existing.
Nice.
So it's been, tried and true from the family end and then from the work end. But yeah, it's really rewarding to be able to help people kind of navigate this stressful part of life.
So you're a clearinghouse of, like, information basically on different facilities. You're not providing direct service
Mm-hmm.
to the individual, but they can call you or get in touch with you and say, hey, this is our situation. We have 3 days, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Hospital said we have 3 days.
What do we do?
This is the circumstance with our loved one, and this is their condition. What do we do? And then do you take them, like, from beginning to end? How does that work?
Yeah, so we have contracts with all the different assisted livings that are out
Okay.
there. So families, it's a free resource for them. They call us and basically say exactly what you just said. Here's what's going on.
Right.
Here's what we need. We try to understand not only like what are your needs and your budget, but also who are you as a person, right? If you're someone who was super, super social, moving into a really small community is probably not the best idea for you.
Yeah.
But also, if you're someone that's kind of more of a homebody, moving into somewhere that has 200 beds and 200 activities is probably going to be overwhelming.
Yep.
So how do we kind of find that perfect space for you and then help you navigate the whole thing? So setting up the tours, helping gather the paperwork, connecting you to other services along the way. And I think the biggest part of it is just helping the families feel like they're not alone while they're navigating this, because it is so unfamiliar. And I feel like, when you're hit with this situation, it feels like you showed up to take a test and then the test was in Spanish and you weren't expecting that.
Right.
And like, now what do you do? It's
Yeah.
super foreign if you're not doing it day to day.
Yeah. Not only is it foreign, but it's this test in Spanish at the worst time of your life.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. When you were not ready at
Yeah,
all.
exactly. When your house just burned down and now
No.
you have to go take this test in Spanish. Yeah, exactly. There's so many factors that are causing chaos in the person's life right then.
Yeah.
I can see this as extremely valuable. Is anybody else doing things like this?
So there's some national companies that do it. My beef with them is you're talking to someone that lives in Georgia who's never
okay.
stepped foot in Utah, right? So that's kind of a negative. There is a couple of other local people that do it that are more franchise based. I think we're kind of unique because we're not a franchise,
Yeah.
so we can hold your hand the whole way through and we're not having to deal with kind of, the little loopholes that we have to go through. But it's super important for people. And I think for us, like, we get a lot of calls from people that think that they're on this island, right? Every call is like, you're never going to believe what happened. This is what I'm
Right.
going through. And then when they say it, it's like you and everyone else has a very similar story. But the problem is we have this stigma where no one wants to put themselves in this category, right? And I think if we could create a space, whether it's, with this or with mental health or any of those things, to just allow people to talk to each other and get support from each other, I think a lot of people could feel more relief during this. I think it's kind of a double-edged sword with that though, right? Because I think there's a lot of people that want to be an expert in something because they went through it one time.
Right.
And so for us, it's kind of balancing that line of, your neighbor went to this place, and so now everyone should go to that place when your neighbor might be in a completely different situation than you were. But just being allowed to talk about it and ask for help, I think, is the biggest thing in any aspect of life. Ask for help if you need it. It's okay.
Right. I love what you said about people feeling like they're on an island. And I think so many of us feel like that, whether we're in a situation, end-of-life situation or not, in our mental health.
Oh,
right.
Sure.
People think no one else is going through this. But the truth is, at any given time, there's probably 100,000 people going through the exact same thing or something very, very similar to it. And the stigma sometimes comes from people just feeling like there's no one that understands me.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can back up a little bit and just say, no, there's plenty of people that understand you. In fact, I've thought many, many times that one of the greatest benefits for people going through mental health challenges is they become available to help others through similar challenges.
Yeah.
Like they've walked that desperate road before, and then they can see someone on there and they can say, I know exactly what you're going through because I've been in the same place. And there's just a comfort that comes from that when someone's saying, oh, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
I'm not crazy. I'm not weird.
Even if there's no solution from it. I think
exactly.
Even from
Yes.
being a business owner, right? I mean, half the things I do, whether it's like a peer group or some of the boards I'm on, it's just with other people that own businesses. And our joke is exactly that, right? Like you feel like you're the only person dealing with a staffing issue or this, that, or the other. And then you get in a room and you all talk about it and realize like, doesn't matter what industry you're in, we all have those same pain points. And at the end, even if I didn't leave with like the playbook of what to do next, I left with at least the reassurance that I'm going to be okay and make it, another day to solve this problem. And I think too that there's time, right? I think a lot of times we tell ourselves, at least I do, that like things have to happen right now, right? Like the whole ship is going to sink if I'm not the one doing it. And so how do we take a step back? And I did the Goldman Sachs like 10,000 small business program, and their kind of mission behind it is, in order to be a good business owner, you have to work on it, not in it all the time. And I thought that was good perspective, that it's okay to kind of step back and trust that someone else can do it and go through the learning motions of what that looks like, right? But you're not a one-man show, and there's other people out there. And again, ask for the help, right?
And that's a real sticking point for a lot of entrepreneurs, isn't it? Where they feel like they have to be the one. They had the idea. They know the best on how to do it and how to proceed with it. And so it's like you don't want to entrust your baby to someone else.
Yeah.
But in almost every case, you're going to need some sort of help. You're going to need that. Where did your entrepreneurial spirit come from? Where do you think?
Yeah, probably.
Maybe you don't know. That's okay.
I would have to say my dad, he's owned his own business. And so I've kind of just watched that my whole life. I think for me, what I've learned, though, is I am a much better doer than a much better being told what to do type of person, right? I'd rather have the idea and see the vision and kind of go after it and throw it and see what sticks versus, being told this is the playbook and this is the only way.
Right.
And that's kind of how we operate our companies. I joke with everyone, like, we're just startup mentality, right? Anyone that joins our team, like, we want to hear what your idea is. We want to try it. Because I think, every personality type is different. Every market we're in is different. Every person we're, communicating with and partnering with and selling to is different. So how do we just take these ideas and throw them at the wall and just hope, let's try this one for the day. I've worked for some companies in the past that, the founders don't operate that way. And they're very much like, this is our playbook and this is the only way we're going to do things. And I think that's probably going to be their biggest weakness is they can't get out of their own way to empower their team to see what else we could do better. So,
yeah, I love that. I think that is a significant challenge for companies that maybe have leaders that are less flexible in their thinking.
Yeah.
And I don't want to necessarily pin it to age because it doesn't always work that way.
No. Yeah.
But it does sometimes. But I love that idea of involving. So it's like almost everyone that works for you is a stakeholder in a way. And you're saying, we want your ideas, how does that change the culture of the company, or how has it changed? What do you feel like?
Yeah, I think it makes it more fun, if anything else, and I think decreases the pressure. I mean, even when we're interviewing people, right, the first question is, what's my quota supposed to be like? And my response is, I'm more effort driven than I am numbers driven,
Yeah.
right? I can't say like you have to force 8 people to move in, right? Because I don't want to have this culture where we're selling a car.
Yeah.
But I
Right.
do want to see, that you're out there and you have questions and that you're bringing new ideas in and we're trying different things. And if I can see that, then I know you're doing something. And so it's been really fun for us because in our space, it doesn't really matter who we talk to. It's kind of relevant to anybody, right? Whether it's for you, for a neighbor, for a coworker, for a friend, there's someone that you're like, oh, yeah, I could see someone that is going through this. And how do we change that perspective to just educate on what we do? But like our team in Texas versus our team in Utah have completely different playbooks of what they're doing. And people respond completely differently to, how it's going.
Right.
But I think it brings a fun energy. And we're getting, when people hear senior living, they don't really think like, wow, what an exciting
Right.
industry. Like I would love to go join that. Right. But I think when we're talking to some of these younger people that have been in kind of more these corporate traditional roles,
Right.
they're getting burnt out with the structure and like that you clock in at 9, you clock out at 5, and like here's the reports that you have to do throughout the day, and you feel kind of like you're a robot by the time you leave. And so I think, we've had people leave some pretty good paying jobs to come into a little bit more of like the risk category because they want the freedom to be, flexible and creative and to kind of have more power in their direction. And so I think that's been kind of a unique thing that we've been able to do is just build a team based off of creativity and go from there. I always tell people when we interview them, if you want me to tell you what your day is going to look like, this is not the right place for you, right? If you want to come and you can be creative, and we have a lady on our team, Janice, who her joke is like, you got to be used to just flipping the U-turn, right? You're driving down the street, you thought you're going to building A, and next thing you know, you flip a U-turn and all of a sudden you're at building Y, right?
Yeah.
You just have to be flexible. So that's been super fun.
I think that's going to appeal significantly to Gen Z, which is becoming a much bigger part of the workforce anymore. It's just an entirely different calculus now of who we're working with. And I think the businesses that can adapt to that and that can adjust their employee management model to kind of meet these the characteristics of Gen Z, I think they're going to find much greater success in the long run. I was talking with someone just the other day who said that, like, I can't remember the exact statistic, but it was at least 40, maybe 60% of people, when they're interviewing for their job, they're already thinking about what's the next job they're going to get.
Oh, wow.
Right. Or like when they're onboarding, they're
I believe
thinking, right.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
No. The entitlement part is weird too. Like for me, I'm more about like, instead of saying, oh, we're going to open this market and we're just going to find a person that fits the mold and let's do this, we kind of cast a big net and we try to find the right person. And then once we find the right person, then we try to open the market.
Mm-hmm.
But it is interesting because, we have some people on our team that are like 74 and are absolute rock stars and just crushing it. And we have, people in their 30s that are the same, but we've also had people come in that are in their 30s with like all the energy in the world, and they show up and they just don't do anything, right? And it's been kind of interesting because from the time perspective, right, like all we really do have in life is time. And what do we do with it, I think is, super valuable. But you have a lot of people that commit to things that don't ever have intention to go through with it, right? They take the job, but they don't show up, they don't put in effort, and then they get upset when there's no results.
Right.
And I don't know, it's kind of interesting to just see where people use their time and their willpower and what their motivation is. And kind of like what you were saying, they're, I think, looking at the what's next, right? They get in, they check this off the list and they think it's going to be whatever in their head. And then they're already, planning for the next thing before they're really living in the now and being present and, just giving the effort. So it's very interesting, like being an owner of something, right? And just seeing these personalities, because it's kind of like the ski boot, right? You don't know how it's going to go until you buy it and you're skiing down the hill. Like with the employee, like you don't know how they're going to be until you hire them, and then it either, sinks or swims. But there's a lot of adapting and I think flexibility. And I'm learning, my dad always says, control what you can control. And that's becoming my new phrase in life is, don't let the little things get to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And figuring out what you actually can control too, right? That kind of cognitive triage that we have to do, where we figure, I do have control over this, I do not have a control over this. So many people waste so much energy trying to control things they have no control over, and it literally is wasted. It's wasted opportunity. I love what you were saying. And we were talking about this before we started the podcast, just this idea of being present and how that's so difficult now
So
because
difficult.
there's so many things that are making demands on our time. We were saying how, you get someone texts you and then if you don't respond within 10 minutes, they're kind of like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah. Yeah. The
And,
panic.
and you're just like, I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm taking a break,
No.
I'm going to disconnect, which we're finding that is necessary, right? How do you, so as an entrepreneur, that's a lot of effort, and there's a lot of things on your mind. Do you take time for self-care? What do you do?
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because in our world, we're like the one category that can't really shut off, right?
Right.
So in our space, in order for us to get paid, we have to be the original referral source, which means like when our phone rings, if we are not answering it,
Right.
then the family is automatically moving on to the next one. And we've tried to build in all these tools, where it's like, hey, we're on the other line right now. Give us 5 minutes and we'll call you right back, and we'll give you all of our attention. But within that 5
Does it
minutes,
happen?
they don't wait,
Really?
right?
Okay.
And I think it's because they live in this, crisis
Right,
mentality of, I need to know what my plan is within the next 5 minutes or my world's going to fall apart. And so we do try to strike this balance of how are we always available to you, but also how do we not burn out our team?
Right.
And so we are really good about, showing up for each other, which is, I think, really neat. One of our team members was just on a cruise and she was like, I can have my phone with me and I can do all these things. And we're like, no, we're just going to
exactly.
transfer your calls to
Yes.
someone else on the team and, go enjoy your family and take the time off. And so it's hard because I think a lot of people on our team, especially, are big givers and they're in this industry because they want to help. And so we feel bad when we're not able to be there for these people. But it's kind of, like when people are parents, right? In order to be the best parent, you have to be the best version of you, whether that's in a relationship or in a workspace or any of the above. And so I think being able to take that time and step away from it so that you can show up and be better and be present and, be helpful is really important. And so we, have you heard of the company called Terrace Metrics at all?
Mm-mm.
So they're kind of a science-based platform, but we're doing some stuff with them both for employee side and also for family side. But they've kind of created this online quiz that people can take and it kind of identifies like what their weak spots are.
Okay.
And then we'll introduce to them, like we notice that these might be some things that are harder for you. So here are some tools for you to help, get this back in your life. So we're trying different things like that out to help kind of support everyone as a whole, because I think could be a lot less resentment from the family side.
Yes.
There can be a lot less turnover from the employee side. And we're kind of working with it, to introduce it to some assisted livings and stuff like that as well to help maybe recognize when your staff is getting burnt out before
Yes.
they quit. Because I think, again, it's right now when people ask for help or need time off or need a break, I think it's perceived as a weakness to a lot of people. And like we were joking about earlier, it's like you
Yes.
feel like, I've got my Apple Watch on my wrist in the shower half the time because it's like, oh, is that person going to call me back?
Right.
And I just need to like shut it off and answer it. But how do we, allow ourselves to disconnect? But also when we disconnect, how do we allow ourselves to be present while we're disconnected?
Right.
Right? Because I'll try to go to yoga and find my Zen, and the whole time I'll catch myself thinking like, what are those things that I needed to do? And then I get back to my car and there's 10 missed phone calls, and it's like, did that many people really need something right now in the 1 hour I was trying to just like disconnect? So I think as uncomfortable as it is, we just have to like force ourselves to take a step back. And I think the more we do that, the more it will allow for people to be okay with that, right? I read a book, I don't remember who it was by, but it was about kind of like the 5 types of wealth. And one is, obviously financial wealth, but one is time wealth.
Mm.
And one of the guys, he was a CEO, and he said, every Tuesday at 4, I shut my phone off and everyone knows they cannot get a hold of me. Like if the building's on fire, call someone else. Like
Right.
do not call me. That is my time that I'm present with my family. And he went on to build a super successful company, but he's like, I couldn't have done that if I didn't have time for me. And
Right.
that I think was really powerful, that as hard as it feels, you have to do it or you're never going to get ahead.
Right. And I think that's one of the keys for entrepreneurs is understanding that you do have to build in that time for yourself. I love that example of the CEO shutting his phone off at 4:00 because it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
Right. And I think the more that we find ways to care for ourselves, then the better equipped we are to handle the next big thing that comes. As opposed to the alternative philosophy, which is just go, 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 which will inevitably lead to negative things, to some sort of burnout, or your mind or your body will eventually say, we've had enough of this.
Yeah.
And you'll get sick, or you'll have some sort of cognitive crisis or something like that. That happens to people all the time because they just don't take the time to get that needed rest. So
yeah, I've read slow mornings, right? Like I try to do slow mornings. No, like I don't do 8 a.m. phone calls, any of that stuff, because I read something also, how you start your day is how your whole day is going to go. So if you start your day, with chaos and meetings and everything like that, you're setting the tone for your day. I think Alex Hermosi, he starts his day from like 4 p.m. as his first meeting and works his way back. And so it's so he can protect his mornings, right? So he's like, this way I have an unprotected block of time where no one is disturbing me or any of the above, and I can get what I really need done. And, then I'll have my meetings later in the day. And so I've been trying to, enlist some of those practices, and it's going, but it's definitely a work in progress.
You have to be intentional about it,
yeah,
don't you? I mean, you really have to think about how are you going to do this, because otherwise you just kind of get swept up in the current of whatever is happening, right? It's your business or your grind or whatever it is you're trying to do. If we're not being proactive, we're just reacting.
Yeah.
And so I love that you're trying to do that. It's a great example
Thanks.
to people. So if people want to learn more about Life for Seniors, where can they go?
So our website's just alifeforseniors.com. So that's probably the best place. It has our phone number on there, and we have a form you can fill out if you need help, or you can email us at info@alifeforseniors.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Amelia, thanks so much for sharing your wisdom today. It's been really great, and I wish you the best in what you're doing.
Thanks.
And thanks everyone else for listening today. Remember that change starts with you, and together we can increase our mental health momentum.